A native of Alabama, jazz guitar legend Johnny Smith was born in 1922. His family moved north during the Great Depression, winding up in Portland, Maine. He learned violin and viola and concentrated on the guitar, teaching himself by listening to radio shows and records. By the time he'd reached his teens, he'd developed his own unique style of playing and eventually joined Uncle Lem and his Mountain Boys, a local hillbilly band that performed regularly for dances and radio shows. As World War II escalated, Smith aspired to be a pilot for the Army Air Corps but failed on a vision test. He was assigned to a military band unit that required a cornet player. He mastered that instrument and was later assigned to a unit that allowed him to tour and play his first love, jazz. After his stint in the Air Force, Smith returned to Vermont, where a local NBC affiliate hired him as a staff musician and arranger. When Smith saw the opportunity to get a demo tape audition at NBC headquarters in New York, he jumped at it. And in 1946, he moved to the Big Apple, where his career as a musician took off. There was no pre-recorded music for TV or radio back then. Everything was live in the studio. Smith averaged 6 shows a day, sight-reading arrangements live on the air. His musical arrangements and compositions were heard for many years on NBC television programs such as The Fireside Theater and The Dave Garroway Show. Raising the bar for musicality on the amplified archtop guitar, Smith was one of the pioneers who propelled the guitar out of the rhythm section. In 1952, Roost Records approached Smith about making a record. Smith put together a jazz quintet that included Stan Getz. His beautiful arrangement of Moonlight in Vermont was his first hit, a rendition that epitomized cool jazz and became one of the best-selling records in the genre. Downbeat magazine named Smith its new star and best jazz guitarist, and he became one of the era's most visible and admired guitarists. The meteoric rise to fame got him out of the studio and into the famous Birdland and other Manhattan jazz clubs. Smith went on to record a series of albums for the Roost label and became the company's biggest-selling artist. At his peak, Smith established an instantly recognizable technique. He was equally at home sight-reading scores in the orchestral pit of the New York Philharmonic, or playing nightly gigs on 52nd Street with virtually every great jazz musician of the times, including Benny Goodman, Bing Crosby, Gene Krupa, Django Reinhardt, Chet Atkins, Count Basie, Roy Clark, Stan Kenton, and Stan Getz. Smith wrote and recorded Walk Don't Run in 1954. 6 years later, it became a hit single for the Ventures. The group's 1960 cover version remains one of the best-known instrumental rock songs of all time. In 1957, Smith's second wife died unexpectedly, leaving him to care for his 4-year-old daughter. Smith's mother and father already lived in Colorado Springs. With their support, and determined to raise his daughter in a better environment, Smith relocated and began a new life away from the New York music scene, where conditions were changing and deteriorating for musicians at the time of his departure. Smith met and married his wife Sandy in 1960. A year later, he opened his own store, Johnny Smith Music, Inc., in Colorado Springs, and led a busy life running the business. One of his more esoteric accomplishments was working with Guild and Heritage to design new handcrafted guitars that carried his name. His deal with the Gibson Guitar Company helped them design a model based on his D'Angelico, and Gibson first issued what became known as the Johnny Smith guitar in 1963. Smith managed to slip away for short tours, and his teaching seminars stimulated a great deal of musical interest among young people. He played often at schools and colleges in the state and throughout the nation. Many of the country's leading guitar players received his personal tutoring. The guitar virtuoso's unassuming attitude belied his musical gifts. He continued to record in New York, releasing 3 albums on the Verve label in the late 1960s. He went to England for the first time in the summer of 1976 to accompany Bing Crosby on the singer's final tour.
That's where the old and the young folks meet. Heaven on earth, they call it Basin Street.
Smith received an honorary doctorate from the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs in 1986. He sold his music store in the 1990s, preferring to spend his retirement fishing or piloting his own plane, although on occasion he still performed, thrilling audiences with his beautiful chords, fast arpeggios, and swinging solos. Smith died in 2013 at the age of 90 of complications from a fall at his Colorado Springs home.